Welcome back to this week's episode of Uncontested Investing. As always, I'm your host, Nate Selinsky, joined by my co-host, Suzanne Andreessen. And Suzanne, we're in the home stretch of property management. It's our last topic on this very prevalent discussion within real estate investing. And the last thing we're going to touch on within property management is using VAs to handle day-to-day operations. So VA is short for virtual assistant. There's so many ways they can help, so many different realms within real estate investing that you can take advantage of them as an investor. Where do you want to start with this topic?
Well, I think this is a great one for us to talk about how to make a commitment for only the time that you need them for. You can expand your maintenance, your showings, whatever that area is that you need assistance with, but you don't have to commit to a 40-hour week person for that.
It's super cost effective, right? It's like a faucet. You can turn it on and off as you need basis. They can help with so many different ways, and it's a good thing to, as like a trial to see if you actually need more help, right? There's so many different ways that an investor can distribute tasks, right? Have help, whether that's different industry professionals, hiring assistants obviously falls into that category. So if you're on the fence about it, it's a good way to test it, right? Can these people actually help? Can I start with 15 hours a week, 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week? What's that magic number? And that's where that cost-effective strategy comes into play.
Well, and it takes away some of the barriers for you to focus on what you need to do. If you're, growing your portfolio, finding other assets, managing the renovations on those assets. But it also, as a smaller investor, allows you to appear much bigger.
Yes.
Now you have a team behind you. Even though you're a two-man shop in here, you've got 30 people behind you that manage you, manage on your behalf. They'll have a phone number that they answer specifically to your organization, but they're also doing that for 100 other property management companies.
Yep. And usually when you're hiring virtual assistants, you're going through companies that hire them for you most of the times. And these are people that are looking to work, right? So as you need, you can add more or you can take away and they'll find a job elsewhere. So it kind of takes the onus off of the investor of having to go through the hiring process, the firing process, building relationships and having to deliver bad news. It's how many VAs do you need? Okay, we can help. Okay, do you need to scale it back? Do you need to add more? So it kind of takes that headache out of it, the hassle out of the hiring process, and allows an investor to scale as they need.
Well, and you could hand off the stuff that's more time consuming, that needs someone's close attention, but not necessarily yours.
Yep. For an investor to make it to the next level, they really need to hone in and focus on where it matters most, whether that's networking, focusing on property acquisitions, a strategy. They can develop a long-term strategy with a lot of these smaller tasks off their plate. So having the VAs at their disposal is a huge win for investors that are looking to scale, grow, and come up with new ways to succeed.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about virtual assistants, we have to break it down into categories of tasks that they can manage. And I think the first one would be leasing and tenant communications. They can certainly help in that realm.
Well, they start out certainly the initial phase is the tenant inquiries, and whether you have the automatic doors where you can give out codes or you have to have a physical showing, a virtual assistant is someone who can take that on your behalf.
Yeah.
And I think it allows you to focus on, and we talked a little bit about, engaging in some of the technology, but this, having them, maybe you don't acquire a software package, you let them use theirs. So the cost of acquiring technology versus having a VA manage it on their behalf, you may want to look into some of that as well.
Or if you're an investor that wants to, handle the first step of, the first face-to-face conversation or the first time you meet with a prospective tenant, and then the VA takes from there, right? They can follow up, set up different appointments, set up showings, reschedule, ask for documents that may not have been collected yet. So you can still be involved in some of these processes, but it's, how much are you willing to let go of and when do you want the VA to kind of take control? An investor still has the final say on that, which I think they would like.
Well, and a lot of the minutia, the tedious tasks of getting a copy of the W-2, getting a copy of the driver's license, pulling the credit reports, and reaching out if you have questions. You may say, as the landlord say, Suzanne, can you please find out? Ask them what happened in this schedule. Why was there a hiccup here? So that they manage the questions on your behalf.
Yep. And then moving on, there's also administration and operations that the virtual assistants can handle. You talk about lease renewals, digital lease generation, rent reminders, late fee enforcements. We talked about how tech can come into play and solve these problems for investors. But sometimes it is good to have that personal touch, have somebody you trust, not always hand it over to an automated voice recording, not always hand it over to AI or a chat bot. A virtual assistant can still give you that personal feel that you're looking for when you want these matters handled between tenant and investor.
Well, you're also taking on some of the paperwork behind the scene. You know, you may have the utility bills for the common area. There's certain things that they can take on, making sure that the lease renewals are sent out within a 60-day time frame. Following up and say, are you planning on renewing your lease? Do you only need it for 6 months? Okay, let's talk about, changing the standards on the lease to fit what your tenant is looking for, but at the same time frame, making sure that everything's kept on time.
Yeah. In the last few episodes, we've really honed in on making sure that everything is done according to a certain standard, whether that's legal or for you as an investor yourself, making everything systematic, keeping track of everything from recording phone calls to scheduled showings. So the virtual assistant can really come into play and fill in those cracks of, okay, what do we need in terms of data? What do we need to write down, put to record, have on file? So whenever something comes up, whenever there's a question, whatever the case may be, something is documented and we can go back and pinpoint it. Virtual assistants can be so valuable for that specific task.
Well, and manage the pieces behind the scene. Making sure that you've got, if you have hard copy, making sure you've got hard copies of everything. Making sure if you don't, that everything's documented and you've got a checklist that's been completed before you hand the keys over and say, "Welcome to the neighborhood."
Yep. And as you mentioned, it's that ace up the sleeve, right? You can appear like you're a 1 or 2 man operation. Maybe there's 3 or 4 forward-facing employees, but then in the background, you have 20 virtual assistants working tirelessly, working on the tasks exactly how you want them done, exactly the way you need them to get done, and in the timely manner. So it can really give investors a leg up on their competition when they have these virtual assistants working for them, completing that common goal.
And they've probably already seen some of these issues that are first time view for you.
Yep.
So they have the knowledge and experience on how to even manage some of that stuff well in advance of you having to deal with it on your first time seeing it.
Mm-hmm. Maintenance coordination, I think, is another topic to talk about where a virtual assistant can come in from day one and be a huge help to an investor, take a lot off their plate. If you have over 20 tenants within your portfolio, 20 residents, whatever terminology, these virtual assistants can be on the phone with them same day, working on tasks. What can we do for you? How can we help? What do you need done at your place of residence, the property within the portfolio? So they can be a huge help just picking up the phone, jotting down what needs to be done and reporting it back to the investor that's overseeing everything.
And a whole other piece of that is managing the emergent request after hours.
Yeah.
You don't want to take that phone call at 2:00 in the
Yep.
morning, but you've got someone else who's prepared to take it for you on your behalf. And making sure that by the time, the morning rolls around, it's already been assigned to someone. They've already got their list of plumbers or electricians or whoever that has to be that manages that on your behalf. But it takes, that 2 a.m. call of my toilet's clogged.
Yes.
When are you going to fix it?
Yep. The amount of renters that you can attract by offering that 24-hour level of service just puts you through the roof as an investor, right? It separates you miles from your competition. Somebody that, maybe they'll pick up the phone around dinner time. Maybe their hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but there's still a huge lapse in time where something can go wrong. You have a virtual assistant on the other line, like you mentioned, whether it's 11:30 p.m., whether it's 3:30 a.m., something can always go wrong. So if you have tenants, renters, residents with that peace of mind, no matter when something goes wrong, I can call somebody. I have an outlet. Somebody will listen to me. Sometimes that's the most important thing, just having somebody on the other line to listen to what's going on. Virtual assistant can help there as well.
And they have their list of vendors and contractors that they're, very comfortable with. You may not have had the need for a welder until now, and but they already have one. So they already know people that they can count on to make sure that the residents' experience is paramount and that we're able to make sure that in a timely fashion, following, again, all the I's and T's are dotted and crossed, that follow the guidelines, making sure that you're not getting into trouble.
Exactly. And then it's the updates, right? Everybody, once that problem is heard, it's on the radar of the investor in, in the workflow, so to speak, whether it's call, text, email, it can be any of those three. One of the big things virtual assistants can do as well, not only are they listening and taking the problem as it occurs, but they can provide updates, whether that's text, email, call. Everybody wants to know, okay, is it a technician on the way? What's the timeline? Maybe they're displaced from the home. When can I go back? So giving those hour by hour or day by day updates can help the renter, so much, knowing that, okay, this is only going to be a few days. Somebody's already working on it. We'll be good in no time. That matters. And, that's when you're talking about tenant retention, that can be down to a VA helping you fill in and just providing those simple updates.
Well, and finding resolution to the issue, and they have the ability to manage that and really, stay on top of the updates. The refrigerator is going to be here at 2:00. Oh, you're not available till 5. Well, great. We'll deliver it at 5:00 then. All the things that you need to do to make sure that they feel that they've been heard and that the issue's been addressed.
And I think it's a big win for investors that have multiple virtual assistants working for them. Say a few things go wrong throughout the course of the week, right? Not totally out of the realm of possibility. Now you have, as an investor, you have a checklist, right? Okay, something happened at this property, something happened at this property, and something happened at another property. What do I need to prioritize? Now the VAs are giving you all the information. They're letting you know the severity of the issue, potential timeline. They can even let you know, I have these vendors lined up. Just let me know and I'll make the calls. So then from, deciding, okay, which one needs the most attention, which company do I want to hire for this one, the virtual assistants can help walk you through that process. And someone, as an investor who has 3 things happen at a property, their head can be spinning. The virtual assistants calling them calm, cool, collected with everything organized and helping them make the decision almost.
And prioritizing it.
Yeah.
Is it a fire in this location that is a real severe situation versus just having a toilet plugged over here?
Yeah.
How can you manage and making sure, and they're managing the plumber and the builder and whatever else you need to make sure that everything goes in a timeline that works for everyone.
Exactly. I think the last topic worth discussing where a virtual assistant come in from a task perspective would be bookkeeping and reporting. And it can be as simple as a task as entering in rent payments, anything along those lines. I mean, the bookkeeping and reporting spectrum can run pretty vast, but they can just step in and help with something as simple as that.
But even, we want the rent payments certainly in a timely fashion, but also tracking those that are late, those that are habitually late, and understanding, what are the fees, what are the penalties, everything that goes along with that, and helping to keep everything on track and documented, because you always want your proof on what was done on your behalf as the landlord to make sure that you've met and exceeded the expectations of the lease.
Yep. And sometimes it's not just as simple as rent, as you mentioned, right? It's managing expenses. We got this repaired over the course of the last month, and we have our first payment due to, pay off that installment to get that fix, within the property, right? So it's managing those type of expenses. It's generating monthly reports of, who's paying their rent, which tenants are starting to pop up as late payments, things along those lines, right? So you can keep a short-term list of expenses and you can keep a long-term list of an expense, and the VAs do all of that for you.
And even helping to manage some of the expansions that you expect to see on the horizon. We need to re-blacktop this area of the parking lot. What do we have to do? What's the timeline? When's the best time to do that? And they'll also know, and you get to know, the schedule that the residents are keeping as well. Does this area have predominantly a 9 to 5 job that we can, block this off during the afternoon? And how can we manage it so that everyone feels that they have been heard, but also in a timeline that makes it very, effective for everyone?
Yep. So as an investor out there, you may be thinking to yourself, okay, a VA can do all these tasks, but where do I find them? How do I train them? Stay tuned. That's the exact topic Suzanne and I are going to cover right after this break.
See you shortly. REI Inc. is the premier monthly publication for real estate investors. Dive into a wealth of expert insight and strategies from industry leaders and gain valuable regional market insights, ensuring you always have the best information at your fingertips. Visit rei-ink.com to elevate your real estate investment game today.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Uncontested Investing. Suzanne and I have been discussing using VAs to handle day-to-day operations as an investor. We've talked a lot about the tasks that they can accomplish, take off your plate, but how to find them, how to train them. These are burning questions investors want to know. We're here to answer them. You have opportunities online, such as online jobs, Upwork, Fiverr, Virtue Desk. There are companies across the country that are willing to help you and fill in your needs when it comes to virtual assistants.
And we talked this before. Many of these folks are also available at some of these national events and trade shows. Rocket Station and Global Strategic were both recently at a show in Miami, and it makes it. These are opportunities for you to connect with them and find out, and just talk. If you're dabbling in the thought of it, you have a chance to meet them in person on their turf, and really understand what are some of the things they can bring to help make your job a little bit easier.
Yep, and I know in the past we've interviewed guests such as Brian Flaherty, Rudy Casanova on behalf of Global Strategic. There are companies out there that are strictly geared towards real estate professionals, right? So for you as an investor, not only are you getting a virtual assistant, somebody that can help you, but it's someone that has previous experience and knows what they're getting into with the real estate industry. So that is a huge leg up and something to consider.
Well, and they're fluent in the lingo that goes with
Yes.
it, on collections, on maintenance, the things that they need to focus, that you need to focus on. They already know about that. They've worked on it before.
Yep, exactly. And then you have that reliability that these people have had these conversations before, and then the time zone compatibility as well, right? So you can find VAs that match up your timeline, or as we mentioned, if you're offering that 24-hour service, you can feel free to go international with your virtual assistants, right? You can have people across the world being able to pick up the phone at any time and handle these. I'm sure you could find them in the U.S. base as well, but the possibilities are endless. So don't just think you have to find a virtual assistant that's in your time zone. Sometimes looking outside of it is the best way to go about it.
And we touched on being fluent in the process. We also want them fluent in English. And that is some of the criteria that you can find. Even going overseas, the benefit of going down that path is that our midnight is their noon.
Yep.
And so it gives you a chance to provide that service at a cost-effective way versus, hitting that call at 2 a.m. Is very expensive on an emergent level unless you've got someone who's managing it overseas for you.
Exactly. They can do all the documentation overnight, set you up. So first thing in the morning, you're drinking your coffee, taking your first meeting potentially. You can look through, okay, what happened overnight with my virtual assistants? What needs my attention today? What can I follow up with them today on throughout the course of my day? Is there anything that I need to set time aside for to talk with them? Or is it just business as usual and they've just taken care of some tasks and I need to kind of follow through? So they can help whether it's an emergency or just business as usual.
And also, English may not be the prominent language that we're looking for. And they also have the ability to be bilingual and to make sure that you're addressing the needs of your resident in the language of their choice. So there's a lot of benefits to having a virtual assistant.
Exactly. And for training, right, it's important that the investor is ready to set up standard operating procedures. They need to be able to list out everything that's expected from the virtual assistant. Yes, the virtual assistant will need to kind of have that initiative, look at the training materials that you provided. But if everything can be documented and organized, it sets you up for success right away because the virtual assistant can just step in, refer to documentation, and they're good to go, right? They're not calling you asking, what does this mean? What should I do here? Everything should be labeled out, properly documented, just so any headache or any discussions or questions are taken out ahead of time.
But you could also give them parameters. You may say, any expense under $425, please go ahead and schedule. Anything from $1,000 to $2,500, I'd like to have 2 bids on it. Whatever that is, you set the parameters on what's most effective for how you want to operate your business, and they'll simply follow that. So it's a great way for you to, take some of the minutia off your plate and focus on, if you're looking at acquisitions or you want to be personally responsible for the renovations of these properties, making sure it's meeting the standard and the excellence that you want that property renovated to, you can use the virtual assistants to take care of your paperwork and you still get to grow your portfolio.
Yep. And we've talked about in the past few episodes, all the tech that's at your disposal as an investor. We can go back to very simple. It can be as easy as Zoom. Record a screen share, record a video on Zoom, walking them through. Okay, if somebody calls you and they have a maintenance issue, here's how you fill out the intake form. This is the website you go to. This is the file you pull up, and you just need to enter in the information, and we'll take it from there. It gets entered into the system. So take advantage of Zoom, any other video recording technology, because it's one thing to kind of read through directions. It's another thing to see it play out live on a video. So giving the VA both of those options to be able to learn and be trained can help them in the long run.
And companies like Global Strategic and Rocket Station, who are immersed in this real estate investment space, already have the software technology that they're using for their other clients. It gives you a chance to engage in products that you perhaps weren't at the level of commitment from a financial perspective, but now you can partner through them and really have the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to look at reviews. Again, focus on and revert back to your partnerships within the industry. Has somebody used VAs before? What are people saying about these different companies? Always, always, always do your due diligence, no matter what it is. Virtual assistants and which company to hire that hires them for you is something that you're going to want to look into.
And I'm a huge fan of attending industry events. Many of these folks are available for you to connect with in person and talk to you about how they can help you grow your business in different levels and expand and grow your portfolio.
Yep. And we hinted at it with technology using Zoom. There's also systems and applications that you can use to set your VAs up for success. Slack or WhatsApp. There's different ways that you could have communication with the VAs at all times. Even Microsoft Teams is another viable option. You have task management software such as Trello, Asana. The list goes on with that. And it's the same thing, right? Do some trials, do some tests. What works best for you? What works best for the VAs? Always try to figure that out, because having communication not only between you and VAs, but between the VAs themselves is huge for getting tasks done, staying organized, and staying on the ball.
And you could set the standard. Create a script.
Yep.
They'll follow exactly how you want your company presented, and you'll always be presented in the most professional fashion.
Yep. And then password security, again, this goes back to training, right? You can train these VAs just how important some of this information is. They should know it, obviously, with their employer and going through similar situations throughout their virtual assistant career, but always having that training about the security, right? These are the passwords. These are where they're stored. These are the people's information that are extremely valuable to us. And if this gets corrupted, we're all in big trouble. So setting that standard again, right at the beginning of how just important keeping this information safe is, can help you in the long term.
And it's a great opportunity for you to not only be to appear larger than you are, to become larger than you want to be.
Yes.
So it's a great way to bridge the gap of where you are today and where you want to be tomorrow.
Yep. And it's all about building that trust. I think one of the common concerns that everyone has, this is my baby, this is my portfolio, this is my livelihood, and rightly so, right? There is some trepidation, some intimidation, even maybe to branch that gap and start using virtual assistants. But you have to build that trust, right? Start with the smaller tasks that we mentioned. Keep them away from the personal information and the passwords and maybe the bookkeeping, right? What can they manage? Build that trust. Start with 1 or 2. Okay, wow, this is going very well. Branch out to 5 to 10.
Sure.
Okay, the ones that you brought in at the beginning, now you start training them. Okay, you've done great for me over the past 6 months to a year. Let's talk about bookkeeping. You can help me with accounting. Okay, let's talk about security of all the important information within this portfolio. So it just can grow and grow from there. And not only a number of VAs, but the VAs can grow within your ranks and become higher up within your own investment portfolio, business, whatever you want to call it.
And when you're ready, you can hire a full-time person. But until then, this is a great solution to manage both.
Yep. And then you have the time zones. So when you're not working, people are still working for you. And then the quality, which we hammered home, which isn't always easy to find. But there's people out there that you can meet at trade shows like Suzanne mentioned. There's Google reviews everywhere. There's industry peers that you can talk to. So there's a lot of quality control that you can do as an investor. It's not always just taking that leap of faith. There's a lot of homework that can be done when you hire that first VA based on the reviews, based on the trainings you set up. They're ready to hit the ground running and you're at peace.
And it's a good solution. It really is. And it'll definitely help you grow your business.
Yep. So for Suzanne Andreessen, I'm Nate Zielinski. This episode has been all about virtual assistants and how they can help your business grow. We'll see you guys in the next one.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Uncontested Investing. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow REI Inc. magazine on LinkedIn and Facebook and RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time.